Well, welcome back. We're talking today with Dr. Jim about some myofascial release work and kind of what it is that he does. He's really done an amazing job with some of the horses here. This is going to be his first time seeing my new thoroughbred here, Pi. Some of you who've been watching on social media probably seen this guy. As you can tell, he gets very antsy with things, and we know that he's got some pain in some areas, so I'm really excited to be talking with Dr. Jim today. So Dr. Jim, welcome. Thank you for being here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Jim, first, because of course maybe people don't know who you are, before we get into any of the myofascial work, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history and kind of how you got into this?
Well, my name is Dr. Jim Yanchunas.
And first off, I want to say I appreciate the fact that you go by Dr. Jim, because I cannot pronounce your last name.
It seems to work for many people. So I've been a veterinarian for over 37 years, a graduate of the University of Florida Veterinary School. For over 20 years, I was a traditional equine practitioner dealing with injections, reproductive work, but the performance horse in general. But in my non-practice life, I was an athlete and swam and ran and did many sports, and coached swimming, track and field, and so some of that is going to gravitate into my discussion of why I got into this. So about 14 years ago, I sold my practice in Florida and then studied for a year acupuncture, chiropractic, some different methodologies called Tui Na and Gua Sha, which are just methods to work on the fascia. And the reason I went to that, in my non-practice life coaching, I would have young swimmers with a sore shoulder, and I would look at it and say, well, let's look at what you're doing in your stroke. But in my practice life, I would see a young thoroughbred with a shoulder issue, and I'd go right to injections. So I realized there was a disconnect between my non-practice and practice life in addressing one as an athlete and then the other one as a symptom, and the horse being the symptom. Now, not to say that there's not a place for those injections, but I looked at the horse, the athlete, as a broader scale, as being more a testament to their willingness to give. And in that willingness to give, they give of their body until they can't. And a lot of issues that we deal with in traditional veterinary medicine is the end result of the I can'ts and then cascading throughout their body.
I think that's one of the things that really drew me to you right from the beginning, was the fact that you don't necessarily go straight to what most vets do, which is going to injections, and thinking that the worst, and you need to do all these different between 1,000 X-rays and trying to figure out these diagnoses. You do it in a much different way.
Well, realize that there's still a place for that, but in my
where
approach,
you start is kind of the
right.
big
Well,
thing.
my approach is to take care of the body first. And in that, I tell people, I ask them, how many muscles in the horse? And they're saying, oh, there's so many. And I say, in the athlete, there's one, because it's a confluence of the whole energy of the body. It's a symphony of motion. And in that symphony of motion, you can have one issue cause another issue, cause another issue. And a lot of times, at the end of those issues, there can be a symptom that can be addressed by traditional veterinary medicine, but it's not the origin. I look for the origins of issues, and realizing that many of our horses come with issues when we get them. And they still have that desire to give. The young horse, up until about 4 and 5, 6 years old, have the willingness to give until they can't give. And that's what we deal with, is the I can't give and then the breakdowns. And so I like to teach my clients the origin, the cascade of the issues, and how we can deal with our athletes on an ongoing basis, and not think of them as, let's inject this to get to that end result every time. That's a temporary result. I'm looking for the long-term result.
So that's one of the things that I think is really cool about you, Dr. Jim, is that when you come and you do body work on a horse, it's not only that you're giving this horse a relief, but then you give the owner something to go home with. And that's kind of really neat. It's exercises that every day they can do with their horse, or at least while the horse needs it. And that's going to be kind of some of the things that you're going to show us here today.
Well, that's imperative, because the horse is an athlete. He's always being functional in his method to get the job done, and his muscles are going to be be in use, and he's going to contract for that use, and we have to realize that we have to give them constant relaxation.
To kind of get us started, obviously this guy's being very antsy. He's been in for a couple of days and hasn't been, it's been raining and so forth here. I know, we're boring you. So this guy here has really shown us some symptoms of pain. In fact, he's even had his stifle going out on him frequently, and I really would like you to kind of check him over and see kind of where it's going wrong first.
Realize that when I talk about the one muscle, even though there are many parts to that one muscle, it's all interconnected with fascia. And fascia constriction, think of fascia as like a simplistic term, think of it like a spider web, but it connects everything together. It connects the whole body together, and that's how everything moves, is that interconnection of the muscles and the fascia. So when I look at a horse, first of all, I look at the horse and see contraction patterns that are inherent with his workload, his previous history, his provenance. And now I'm going to touch him, and when I touch him, I'm going to look for areas of sensitivity that relates to the nervous system being constricted because of the fascia, and that's why we're going to work to that myofascial release, and that's going to cause an irritation on him. I'm going to go over his body. So what I'm going to do, just take a simple needle cap, and I'm 1 to 2 pounds of pressure, and I'm going to go over his nerve, and like right here, there's the trigeminal nerve. And so look how sensitive he is right there. That is crazy sensitive. So there's 7 bones in the neck, 7 cervical bones. And so I'm going to come up here to C1, cervical 1, and I'm going to say, just touch it right there. Oh my gosh, that is so sensitive. Let's go to C2, not so sensitive. C3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So as you see in this horse, he has trigeminal nerve sensitivity associated with the fascia over the masseter muscle, and then tension at his pole. Coming to the left foreleg, I noticed right off that this horse has some bulging here on this left fore as opposed to the right fore. And so this is not normal. This is a reflection of nurture, which means that he has been impacted by overloading this left foreleg. So we have tension in the rhomboid trapezius, tension in the tricep, tension in the bicep. His flexors are tense. Okay, good. So that's an issue. So far we have 2 issues, but they're not the origin. The origin of movement in the horse originates in the hind end, and it's not in the legs. I refer to the legs as the wheels on the bus. The mass of the butt is our origin, our engine. Okay, so we have 18 ribs either side. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to sense there's no tension here, which is good. All right, now we're going to come to the lumbar. In all horses except for the Arab has 5 lumbar. All the other horses have 6. So right here, I notice some bulging right here, so I'm going to see some tension there. I'm going to grade. If I'm grading, I grade out of 5. That would be a 5. This would be a 4. So that's pretty significant if I'm grading out of 5. I'm going to grade this a 2+. But there's the origin of the psoas muscle, and that's going to inflict tension to the hip flexors and the hamstrings. And see how tense that is? So that goes to his propulsion or his impulsion, and if those are tight, those cause restrictions of motion, causing an impedance in our impulsion. So let's go to the other side. Okay. Let's go to that trigeminal nerve again. So that's a featherweight. See that tension?
Now, before we keep going on, I'm sure people are wondering how much pressure are you actually putting on?
1 to 2 pounds of pressure, but that's a feather.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be there. When I come down, so that means this horse, 24 hours a day, is tensing in his jaw. All right. So remember on the others, the bones of the neck, we have 7. So at C1, we have no tension. C2, we have no tension. C3, 4. Now at 4, 5, 6, and 7, we have irritation and we have some tension. So the brachiocephalicus muscle is tight, which can impact a load to this right foreleg if our cervicals are tight. All right. So I don't have that bulge on this side, and I don't have that tension in the rhomboid trapezius or the tricep. So already we're starting to see patterns. And that's the key, is finding the origin of the issue and then looking at the dominoes that fall, or the pattern of accommodation of movement. Okay, so now we're going to come right back here, come right back here. Okay, so now I have to get out of the way because I don't know. Okay, so if you come over here. So I'm past the ribs now. I'm going to go to the lumbar and look at the tension in the gluteal. So the gluteal right here is very tense, and the hips are very tense too, and the hamstrings. So now we have the origin. Now how do I know it's the origin? I look at more issues on this right side as opposed to the left, although the left has very tight hips and hamstrings and a tight psoas, but this causing a reflection to the diagonal pole, causing a reflection to the diagonal cervicals on the right. And then because we're having issues with our push from that right hind, he's overloading the left fore, causing tension in our fascia. And that's where we have to address now. Now we have to open up the muscles, open up the fascia, so that the horse can move and doesn't have jaw pain.
Now, would you say, I've seen people run these, tests down the body, and when they run the needle or whatever they use down and they see these pains, I notice that their description is thinking it's much deeper. Is that a normal thing that you see too with most, with other vets?
Well, what I have found is that the tension in the muscles and tension in the fascia with this neurosensitivity that I'm showing can cause other problems. But if we take care of this fascial tension, a lot of those other problems will just dissipate. So I like to think of it as peeling the onion. And the onion that is pie, that would be a very bad pie. I guess in some cultures maybe. But in the onion that is pie, I take away this fascial tension, that neurosensitivity, and then we see where we go. We have to start there, not starting with, in deference to my colleagues, not starting with injections, but maybe finishing with injections if they're needed.
And I think that's so important too, because as I've seen these tests done before, I always like, well, it has a sore back, or immediately it's the hock, and I need to do these injections or do these things. And so taking care of that body work first seems to be the most important.
Key. I relate a story where 37 years ago, I was working on the track and I was injecting hocks on 3-year-olds. And they would do great until about 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, and they said, we'll come back and do the hocks again. Well, there's a failed premise there that we're injecting all the time, and let's look at why the hocks are sore. Remember, the engine is not in the lower leg, the engine is up high in this mass. And so for this horse, I'm going to show you the pattern that I would do to relax his fascia so that we can work through, so he'll be much more relaxed.
And one of the things you just said there really aligns with even all the training that we talk about. People are always asking me, how do I get my horse to stop bucking, stop bolting, stop doing all these things? But I always come back to the why is the horse doing it versus just saying, well, use this training method to stop the action, find the why, yes, so you can then solve that problem, and then it just goes away. Because those things are just symptoms, right? Lameness, whatever, those are just symptoms of something else.
There's no evil horse.
And I really feel when we talk about the why, as you've noticed, and I'm sure everyone at home has noticed, this horse being relatively agitated as we've been standing here, obviously biting here. I haven't been correcting it really, because I truly believe that a lot of this is not necessarily bad behavior, but it could potentially relate to some of the pain that's going on. We're not certain of this, but that's where I'm going first.
I see it all the time. Because a horse wants to be out of pain, and if we can make him be out of pain, they're going to be willing to do this stuff. So going back to the origin of the horse, of the issues of this horse, I find that to be the right hind gluteal. He's deflecting to his pole, deflecting to his lower cervical, left foreleg, and then to his left hip. Sometimes the left foreleg and the hip can be interchangeable in that pattern. But what I want to do is I want to make a happier pole horse first. So I usually start with the pole. So I'm going to take a cookie. I always joke with my clients, I never give the cookie, but I always give the treat. And the treat is a physical pain relief to relax the fascia, relaxing the muscles, relaxing the nerve. So I'm taking this cookie, it just happens to be 27 weeks old, and I'm going to hold the halter very lightly. There's no force because the horse doesn't like to be forced. So I'm going to hold the halter right here. And I've never done these stretches with this horse before, so don't think like he's well trained in it. Notice I can do it with 2 fingers. My left hand, elbow next to my body, and I'm going to take my cookie, and then as he comes to it, I'm just going to push it up, and I'm going to try to keep it level. Try to keep it level. Level. Okay, so I'm done. Did he get the cookie? No, but what he did get is the treat. So now we don't have any tension there, and we don't have any tension here. So no trigeminal nerve pain, and no pole pain. It's that simple. I like to think of it as like think of the arm as the muscle, and then the cuff of your sleeve as the fascia. And right now it's tight, but when I open that up, suddenly the sleeve and the muscle are elongated and I don't have that tension.
So you're saying the trigeminal nerve is in relation to the pole?
Pi, because he has pole pain, he is bracing in the masseter muscle, causing the trigeminal nerve to be tight, and that causes an irritation. So it's not, the relationship is of his own doing and how he responds to his pain. Some people, they will grit their teeth because they have other issues. That's what Pi does. He grits his teeth on this side because of his pole pain.
And you think the way he moves his teeth right now is something, would you say that?
He's been tight for a long time, and we're eventually going to relax that so that he doesn't have that masseter tension.
That's crazy, the difference in just one little stretch.
They want to be out of pain. It's us that don't always want to release our pain. Horses want to release their pain. Just give them the avenue to do it. And that's the thing that I found with our animals is that they don't want to hold on to their pain. You castrate a horse, okay, I'm back to normal. Grazing the next day. You castrate Scott here, and I'm afraid he'd be thinking about it for a long time.
No, it's just, that's, well, I just went down a dark hole there.
I'm sorry, but it's just a reflection of how sometimes we hold on to pain, and horses don't want to do it. So we're going to take away his neck pain on the other side. Realize is that the jaw pain is still here.
Now that's interesting. So it didn't get rid of, it only got rid of one side.
The jaw masseter reflection I have found is related to something that's painful on that side. And something that's painful on this side is going to be related to him gritting his teeth. A lot of TMJ, a lot of bits get changed, not realizing that it's oftentimes a reflection. I found that true TMJ is very rare, but reflective TMJ is very common.
Okay.
Okay, so remember that we had tension right here. Mm-hmm. And so we had cervical tension at C4, 5, 6, and 7. So when I run down the jugular groove for this neck stretch, which I call hills and valleys, when we run down this jugular groove, this right here, this slope right here are the bones of the neck. So as you run your hand down really lightly, you're going to feel a hill, valley, hill, valley, hill, valley. When we do a traditional carrot stretch, we don't segment off our cervicals. This is going to segment off our cervicals. Okay, so going back again to show you Pi is being very good. So we have that tension right here, so let's take that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go mid-neck. I'm going to find the valley. I'm going to assume a warrior pose or a fencer's pose. And then I'm going to push into the valley as he comes to my cookie that he won't get. I'm going to push him back to neutral, go to the next valley, push in again a little bit deeper. He's a little bit resistant here because it's tight. Okay, good. Good. Now
And you're basically making like a fulcrum point. You're not necessarily making any kind of chiropractic adjustment through this.
This is just about relaxing creating a fulcrum that he has to bend around. Now he just cracked right there on his own accord, just because I pushed into that valley. And it's not a thrust. It's more like a brace.
Yeah.
Notice my left hand is stiff and it's not broken, and I have to create this angle that he can bend around. So I went to the 4 valleys, and suddenly I have relaxation there. And he's not trying to bite me. The jaw pain is still here because it's related to something else. So now I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to do what's called guasha, or think of it as an instrument-assisted fascial relaxation. And there's a couple of ways to do this. The guasha is G-U-A-S-H-A. I'm going to take a jar lid, because I have a tool, but at home you don't have to get the tool. Realize that I'm going to relax this back here. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to find the highest point. I'm going to go up about 8 inches. I'm going to go off the bone, because bones don't like to be rubbed. And I'm going to sweep it this way. It's very tight here.
Now, how much pressure are you putting down on that?
I'm not being bashful on this.
Okay.
I'm reading the horse. I will do this on both sides, so it's bilateral, because his hips are tight on the other side, and I'll show you that in a second. Now I'm going to come to this bone. And I'm going to come up, and I'm going to use the heel of my hand and just make an angle. And this trajectory, this quarter circle, is where I'm going to do it. There's a number of knots here. If you notice, I'm really going ahead and really going to push down on that.
So you're just working the knots out, basically.
I'm relaxing the fascia that will relax the muscle.
Okay.
Okay, so now I've relaxed that fascia.
That was a nice little release there.
And we don't have that tension right there. I want to open up the sacrum and the pelvis, so I'm going to do what I call the taffy pull. Taffy is cold hard, but when you pull it, it heats up and elongates. So I'm going to come here with my left hand to establish a ledge. My right hand, my elbows are straight down, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure. How much pressure? Maybe about 10 pounds, but I'm feeling that relaxation. It's like feeling like butter. I'll show you a pelvis later on and show you what I'm doing. So now I relax that pelvic sacral entanglement, and what's gone now, hopefully, is the jaw pain. And
so the jaw pain is related all the way back there.
Well, he thinks about his pain by gritting his teeth. And he grits his teeth. Notice the eye is softer now, because he doesn't have this aggregate of tension in the masseter muscle. And so it's an empathetic reflection based on a same-side pain release. And realize that when he is under saddle and he is really using that hind end, he is going to be gritting that teeth even harder if you don't give him relaxation at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's definitely starting to quiet down, his little agitation. He's still obviously trying to chomp a lot here. Could that also be part habitual?
Well, I think there is some habit here. Realize that he's 5 years old. Mm-hmm. He's probably had this pain for at least 3 years. And now taking away, he's actually getting relaxation in that jaw, and we don't have that pain.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is take away that pain. Okay,
yeah.
Let's go to this other side. So this has become even greater now, and this has become that.
Oh yeah,
see how
look
greater it is now?
How agitated that is, huh?
Because as we take away one pain, the other pains become more exaggerated. I would take my tool, or this is the tool I use, to relax that, in this pattern, but I'm going to show you the stretch. I would go find the highest point, go up about 8 inches, stay off the bone, and sweep it back. But I'm going to show you the stretch that is going to relax that after I would do the guasha, so that he's going to be more relaxed. So we'll show it from a couple of different angles here. This is very important to realize, to relax the sacrum, relax the psoas major and minor. All right, so I'm going to take my hands, make a diamond. I'm going to come up to this highest point, also called the tuber sacrale for those anatomy wonks. Here, here, here. Then I'm going to go out, and then I'm going to press down, and then I'm going to vibrate. I call this a dancing or shivering crab. If you can dance, dance, but don't rub. So a shivering, 10 to 20 seconds. So push down to flatten the croup. And then after you flatten the croup, then you will vibrate those points. But now, look at the difference. So let me show it from the other side so you get a visual from that side too. So
Just stay right there.
stay right here. Again, making a diamond, coming right here, opening up, pressing down to flatten the croup, and then vibrate or dance. These fingers will essentially be neurological junction points that can relax everything we've done. Okay, so what do we have left? We have Sir Humpy left. Now, are we ever going to get rid of this Sir Humpy, this enlargement because of the left hand? He's had 3 years to develop it. But we don't want that tension here, because he's overloading this left fore, which is causing a lot of left fore issues. We get that low heel, we get the splints on the inside left fore, all because we're overloading. The rear wheel drive is becoming a front wheel drive, and we want a rear wheel drive with an accompaniment to the front wheel.
It's funny you say about the splint, because that left front is the one that he popped a splint on relatively recently.
That's because of the overloading from the right hind to the left fore. The right hind is not accomplishing the goal, and Pi, being the willing host as he is, he's going to overload his left fore, and these muscles, because they get tight and the fascia gets tight, it puts an undue load down here, and then you'll get that splint. And the inside left splint, in my 37 plus years, I found to be the most common. Ergo, I find most horses in my practice now as to being dysfunctional or tight in the right hind. Not every horse, but many horses. And this is a very classic pattern I found, but it's not the only pattern. So that splint is related to overload because of losing the flexibility of the muscles and the fascias, restricting the motion of the scapula. So the scapula runs right here. And on the inside or the medial aspect of the fascia, it's bound up like Velcro. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to open up that Velcro. And we do this, many of us do this exercise, but we don't do the most important point of it.
Before you fully do the exercise, I do have a question. For him, one of the things that I've noticed with riding is that he always likes to stay relatively bent to the left. Like his body stays arched to the left. Would this have something to do with this potentially?
It's all reflective of his right hind and how he gravitates to the left to accommodate. And so it's all the right hind on this horse, which is, I will say, in the tens of thousands of horses I've looked at in this modality, I find many horses are right-sided, and that we have a tendency to nurture that too. So this horse came to you with history that we're going to have to deal with. You can keep that at bay once you start opening up the body. All right, so I'm going to take this leg, and I'm going to, the reason why this is the last thing I do is I need to relax that right hind so that he could carry the load. So I'm going to lift the leg up. I'm going to hold it by the fetlock. I'm going to lean back. Because I don't want to carry the load on my back. That's not a happy place. So I'm leaning back and I'm saying, "Hey Pi, how's it going?" Micro vibration for 10 seconds. Then after 10 seconds of micro, I just give it a little bit more. I call that the macro vibration for 5. So I'm relaxing that fascia, and then I'm opening it up, and suddenly, much better.
Yeah.
Right? I could probably do it a little bit more.
I was going to say, I see some more flinching going
I
on
could probably
there.
do it a little bit more. And realize that the key for us is repetition, repetition, repetition. Pi will still use his body, and we'll need to relax it. No matter what sport you as a human athlete does, you will get tense too. And so we have to take care of that. So I'm going to do a little bit more there. Notice I'm counterbalancing, so I'm not carrying that
Not
weight.
in a great place there, Dr. Jim.
I know. Okay. Okay, so now much better. Okay? So that's the myofascial work that I would approach Pi with, ideally before and after exercise, and ad forever, ad infinitum. A little bit of Latin teacher from Mr. Pelican, my high school years. So, because they're athletes.
So these are things like you're talking about. You said do these stretches. So this is going to help for kind of today, but the pain can still come back, something to continue.
Range of motion issues associated with his fascia restriction, fascia, F-A-S-C-I-A, his fascia restriction are things that are embedded in his history right now, and that's what we have to take care of it. I've had horses I've dealt with starting at 2 and 3 years old, never developed these patterns. Pi has a pattern. So if we address his patterns and keep him elongated, then that's how we're going to achieve that good athlete and that longevity, that 25-year-old Pi who's still working.
So one of the things I notice even about him now, just the body looks a heck of a lot more relaxed. He's still doing this little jaw thing, but overall the body looks a lot more relaxed than what we started with. And I think that's a big thing.
And realize that it's what you can do with your hands, with these simple exercises that ideally don't take 2 to 3 minutes. And that's the key for you as a horse owner and a compassionate horse owner, is that you can take care of his body and they can. Now, do all these stretches fit with every horse? No, they're tools in your toolbox. And the high and tight and the neck exercises are great for any horse. If you did the handshake on both front legs, they would be great for any horse. Some of the stuff in the back, the dancing crab, probably good for most horses. Realize that always listen to your horse. They're telling you all the time, either in hand or under saddle. They're talking to you all the time, and for us is to listen to your horse, and that's key.
So I hope you viewers at home really have enjoyed this and taken something away from this. The biggest thing that I always try to help tell people is remember that your behavioral issues should always start physically first, meaning something you should always check out. Always have your vet or chiropractor or somebody come out and kind of check on the horse before you start going down the training route. Most people are always thinking that behavioral issues are just that, behavioral, and they need to do some form of training to fix the problem. I'm a big believer that it's not usually where it starts. It usually starts as maybe a potential physical ailment. So always start there. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you right here next week on Advantage Horsemanship TV.